one good thing about Australia, it's a very multicultural place. So you won't really miss your own people. I landed on a Saturday. Of course, I rested on Sunday. Then on that Monday, my sister showed me how to use public transport. So, going from the trains, the buses. Then on Tuesday, I took myself to a forklift training class. The job that I got was nearly 3 hours away. So for me to get to work at 7 a.m., I had to wake up at 3 a.m., have my breakfast, go through the buses and trains, and to be at work by 7 a.m. So, and my other friends, I think they did live like around the corner, 15, 20 minutes away. So when I was already 3 hours into my day, before the job started, they were just 15 minutes away. So it was really tough. I did that for like a week. Then I was sacked. My name is Moses Kipchanui, based here in Sydney for the last 6 years. So this is where I call home. And it's been a journey, Maze. So these were, like, they call Australia the land of kangaroos. I don't really know why, because of course there are a lot of kangaroos, but kuna kwanga na that common misconception that there are more kangaroos than humans. Firstly, I arrived in around mid-July, which is right in the middle of winter. So at around 8 p.m., that's when I landed in Kingsford Smith Airport. Immediately I got out. The cold enye ilinipiga you guy. That place is, when it gets cold, like suddenly too my hands zilikuwa zinaanza kukua a bit frozen nini. Even the air, like you get tell even the quality of air, really dry and really cold. So kusneeze on my way home. Yeah, bana. So the extreme weather. And then I was not aware about the sun circles. Like, for instance, we don't really get a lot of sun time in winter as opposed to the summer. Like in the winter, by 5 p.m. it's already dark. That one I wasn't really expecting. I think sikuwa nimepatiwa memo. So I was surprised that it's not like back home whereby you can actually tell the time by just looking at the position of the sun. That was another shock. Of course, there are several others that came with time, but those were like the initial ones that I remember, experiencing in the first days. Currently, I am a disability services officer. Apart from that, a disability services officer is basically someone who works with persons with disabilities, but not directly, but supporting those who are working with them directly. So in terms of, trainings, offering sort of external supports, so that our main job is to ensure that those people who are actually taking care of them are getting the right resources and enough resources to, to do their job optimally. So that's like my 9 to 5. But on the side, I'm also a podcaster. I do run a podcast, which is like the Mozz podcast, available on YouTube and Spotify as well. Then outside that, I'm also a DJ. So I do host and run events here in Sydney and also around Australia as well. Sydney is one of the most expensive cities to live worldwide. So just to get by, you'd really have to have either a well-paying job or a couple of jobs just to fill in the baskets. So it's not really unheard of for people having, like, more than one job just to get by. So just having like a couple of, balls in the air need pretty much the bare minimum for a lot of people. So I get to DJ a lot of, African events. But I've also, because Australia is a very multicultural country, I've also gotten a chance to, to play on to other people's in other cultural context as well. So things like boat parties. I've also done weddings, a lot of weddings. So I think DJing is one of those careers that really requires one to be as flexible, or at least if you want to be a good DJ, you should take the extra mile of being very flexible with music appreciation, music research, um, skill sharpening, because that's what usually separates the good DJs and the average DJs. If anything, I would argue that crowd reading skills usually goes a long way than DJing skills. Like a mediocre skilled DJ with good crowd reading skills is far much better than a good DJ with poor crowd reading skills. So how my Australian journey started. So I had just finished college back in Kenya. So and I was just I just had a random job I was a clerk in a law firm. Then at the time, my sister had already settled in over here in Sydney. Then probably some time later, she just suggested like, "Hey, have you ever thought of pursuing your studies here in Australia?" Australia had not really been a study destination in my head until then, because what I was used to at that point, a lot of my friends were heading to the US and Canada. I had considered Canada before, but I heard that place is really cold. So yeah, that was not really a consideration anymore. So that was me. I didn't really have it was a no-brainer to me. So I knew like that was a perfect opportunity to tour the world and get some education as well. So a 10-minute call was enough to convince me. So I started the process of getting the necessary requirements, which were different back then. Then I applied for a school, got an acceptance. Then in July, I think I landed here in July 13th, which was on a Saturday. I hope I'm getting the dates right. 13th or 14th. Yeah, on Saturday, on a good Saturday evening. Then after that, yeah, I had like 2 or 3 months before uni started. So that's the time that I was kind of familiarizing myself with the ground, looking for a job, and basically starting afresh, because I came to a place whereby I had to find new friends and basically start everything from the ground up. Yeah, so that meant also me looking for a job. So I was lucky enough because I was hosted by my sister and my cousin for a good chunk of the 3 months before uni started. But because my university was really far away, I had to look for a place which was a bit closer when it was nearing the commencement of the course. Lucky for me, I think I knew beforehand that I had to be very flexible with what I was open to doing, because at the end of the day, it was just about me being able to stand on my own quick enough and pay my own bills as fast as I could. Lucky enough, I had the grace of very good hosts, so I didn't really have the challenge that I've had with, I've had from other people, whereby they have not really gotten the best hosts, so they have not really been patient with, allowing their people to maybe settle well in before, they let them go. So for me, this is the thing. I landed on a Saturday. Of course, I rested on Sunday. Then on that Monday, my sister showed me how to use public transport. So, going from the trains, the buses. Then on Tuesday, I took myself to a forklift training class, which was basically 2.5 hours away from where I was staying at the time. So Sydney, I was staying in Manly, which is on the northern beaches, the northern suburbs, and I had to go all the way to Bang. I think it was Bankstown, if my memory is serving me right. So from Manly to Bankstown, I think I had to get a bus first to the city, then 2 trains, then a bus to the center, whereby I took the forklift class for a few days. Then I had the exams. I passed. I got my forklift license, but it wasn't really easy getting a forklift job because majority of the offers that were being given, they wanted full-time commitment, and because I had come in with a student visa, I had time restrictions, because by then I think students weren't allowed to work beyond 20 hours a fortnight. No, 20 hours a week, so 40 hours a fortnight. But a lot of the job openings that were there were asking people who would be able to maybe give 40 hours a week, because a normal working day would maybe last 8 hours. So give it maybe 8 times 5 days a week or 6 days a week, that comes to right around 40 hours. So yep, that hit a brick wall. So then through other connections, I was able to get a construction job. The job that I got was nearly 3 hours away by public transport. Of course, it was gonna be maybe 1 hour, 1 hour drive away, but because I didn't really have a car at the time, I had to use public transport. So you can imagine, work started at 7 a.m. and ended at, was it 3 p.m. if I remember? So for me to get to work at 7 a.m., I had to wake up at 3 a.m., have my breakfast, go through the buses and trains, and to be at work by 7 a.m. So, and my other friends, I think they did live like around the corner, 15, 20 minutes away. So when I was already 3 hours into my day, before the job started, they were just 15 minutes away. So it was really tough. I did that for like a week. Then I was sacked. I was working from 7 to 3, right? Then from 3, I have to go all the way back home, which was another 3 or so hours, take a shower, have my dinner, and sleep early enough for me to wake up at 3 so that the whole circles runs again. So I did that in a week and I was exhausted. So lifting stuff up, carrying stuff. I did a bit of scaffolding, like, kama like wanajenga ghorofa, there are those other metal pillars that huwa wanaekelea kando, then they make structures that people step on when they are constructing. So yeah, tulijenga a couple of that during the week. So the thing is, I was there with two other guys, so I sort of just had to copy what they're doing. Yeah, but for them, I think it was their daily bread, so it was so easy for them. Then for me, I'd not really done anything. What was the hardest job that I'd done to that point? Okay, nowhere near Mjengo job. Nowhere near Mjengo. That was like a level 10 for me at the time. Yeah, so even though I saw it coming, because within the first few days, I could actually tell there's a different way on how the boss was treating me. Not that he was mistreating me totally, and I'm not really placing the blame on him, but I could actually tell that there was some sort of different way he was kind of handling me in terms of the way he communicated or the kind of roles that he was giving me. So, but again, come to think of it, it was also a relief because I was tired. I remember, I think I worked from Monday. Then on Saturday was my last day. I remember waking up the next day without an alarm at 3 a.m. because my body was already sort of used to little to no sleep. And I felt good. I was getting paid $25 an hour, which might not look as much these days, but at the time, that was like the standard pay. So $25 an hour times 8 hours, that came to around $200 an hour, $200 a day. Yeah, so for the week, slightly over $1,000. Yeah, but when you factor in, taxes and whatnot, so it brings things down a bit. But by then I was actually saving up for a car, because I came to realize that a car in Australia is not a luxury but a basic need. And this is how I got my first car. So I do have my sister's friend who had an extra car. So in one of the Sundays that we were just chilling, he actually suggested, like, hey, by the way, I usually see you going to work every morning, by bus. How about, like, you have one of my cars, you can use it for a while, then yeah, as you figure your things out. So in my head, I didn't really hear the last bit of the conversation, like, you can use it for a while. So I remember him asking, I remember asking him, like, yeah, how much are you selling? So I think that took him by surprise. Then he was like, okay, that's actually an extra car that I wasn't really using as much. How much do you want to pay for it? In my head, I didn't really know how much cars cost in Australia. So I just remembered, like, from my Django work, I had saved around, I think I had some $500 lying around my bank account. So I just remembered telling him, like, yeah, I do have $500 lying around my account. Is that good enough? Then he was like, yeah, I can actually do the paperwork right now, and you can drive off to work using that car tomorrow. Yeah, he's actually outside. So I actually bought the car before even seeing it. It was in the evening. I was actually going to see the car the next morning. So lucky enough, he had the paperwork with him. So yep, he transferred the ownership to me. He gave me the keys. So he just be like, yeah, okay. So the car is downstairs. It's, PVP 655. It's Toyota Hiace. It's like, okay. So I went downstairs. The car was parked. Yeah. So basically, nilibuy mat. Toyota Hiace H100 1990 model. Basically, the car was older than me. It had 630,000 kilometers, but it was a perfect car. I actually drove the car for 2 years without any mechanical problem. I bought the car for $500, right? Then I remember I was meeting a few of my friends. Over time, I was realizing that I was probably the only one within the circle that I was actually driving a van as a personal car. That doesn't usually happen. So, like, it only had the front seats. So behind, it was all empty. It was just all empty. So I was doing a lot of delivery jobs with it on the side. But also, say, I was pulling up to uni with my van. Yeah. So I later came to realize, my friends were actually asking me, like, hey, how comes you are driving a van? Like, why did you consider a van, like, rather than just getting a car? Then yeah, someone just sold it to me, and I thought it was a good deal. So I remember one of my friends asking me, like, hey, how much did you buy it for? Then I told him, yeah, I just bought it for $500. And I literally saw his jaw dropping. Later, that's when I came to realize that a similar car would have actually cost 10 times more than that. That was just a favor. So that guy just did me a favor, and he was just getting rid of that extra car. There was no way you could just find a car with $500. A good car, for that matter. If you convert that to Kenyan shillings at the time, that's like unabuy mat na this 14-seater na around 40K. Yeah. That's like a direct equivalent of what that would be back in Kenya. Yeah, so yeah, that car served me well. The only problem it had was the air conditioning was faulty. So when it came to the summer, I had it rough. And summer in Australia is not a joke. If you live in a place with no air conditioning, or you have a vehicle with no air conditioning, you'll have it rough. Yeah, so that was the only challenge that I had. But the car served me really, really well. I even took like 3 road trips with it. One, I drove from here to Melbourne, which is like 8 hours. And I even lived in the car. Like at the time I was doing the road trips, I used to sleep in the car. That was like my. Then on the side, I was doing a lot of delivery jobs outside my main job at the time. Because I came to realize quickly that a lot of friends were asking me for favors. Hey, Mozz, like there's this seed that I want to bring to my place. Okay, unajua the first time you're doing it as a favor, like, okay, yeah, I'm free, I can come, we can do this. Then later, someone actually introduced me to an app called Airtasker. So that's where people look for jobs. So I realized that there were a lot of delivery jobs flying around. Yeah, so the car bought itself soon after. It got to a point whereby it was actually maintaining itself, because with time I came to realize that maintaining that car was not even hard, because one of those old cars it did not really have those complicated engines and whatnot. So I used to do all the mechanical works on it by myself. So I usually maybe took it for inspection, which is absolutely compulsory in Australia once a year. But apart from that, I never really had any problems with the car. So I think I disposed it off maybe after around 2 years. So there were a few things which changed, because when school started, I did have to stick to my visa conditions, because for student visa holders you can't work more than 40 hours per fortnight unless you are on official dated school holidays. So of course I had to cut down my working hours. So because I had uni during the day, so I had to look for work that I could do maybe in the night. So that's when I first found my first forklift job that I had talked about earlier, but that again lasted for a week, and I'll tell you why. So I used to go to uni maybe during the day. Okay, it was maybe, how many days did I used to go to that? Probably 2 or 3 days. So in the night, I was working in a chicken factory. So like one of those suppliers of chicken that took them to maybe KFC, McDonald's. So my work was to maybe offload chicken from the trucks and put them in the freezer. So I was working in freezing temperatures. Then on a normal forklift environment, you just you're not only the only one on site. So there are other forklift drivers. So I don't really know if for a normal forklift environment, there are a lot of beeping sounds. Yeah, because of, alarm. So you can't really, use your phone as much. You can't, you do have to be fully focused at work. So you can imagine 8 hours of beeping. At the time I was actually going to sleep, those are the only voices in my head. It got to a point whereby you actually get fed up really, really fast. It was mentally draining. It's just mentally draining by itself, but if you add the responsibility of being a student on top of that, that took it to the next level, because there are times where I would leave uni, because I had a van. I had a few changes of clothes inside the car, go to work for through a good chunk of the night, go to the gym in the morning just to have a shower and change, come to uni maybe early enough. For instance, if I had a class at 9 a.m., I'd be on the parking lot at maybe 7 a.m., just get some 2 or 3 hours worth of sleep before I step in class. So yeah, I did that for 2-3 days, because yeah, anyway, I had to stick to my conditions. So I was working, maybe I had the forklift job a couple of days that week, the days that I wasn't really in uni. But there were 2 days whereby my shifts aligned with my uni days. So I had like that, in a 4-day period, I had less than 5 hours of sleep. So I was really beaten down. At the end of the week, I had a day shift, but I overslept because of being too exhausted from, I think, I had uni during the day, but for some reason I didn't really have a shift that night. But so I think my body just needed a rest. I overslept. and I felt good. That was the only time that I actually felt good. And it was one of those casual jobs because we were told in advance, like, hey, you are employed on a casual basis. If you miss a day of work, it's a wrap. Yeah. So I just knew that it was a wrap for me. That's actually interesting because I've had a few other funny incidences of friends because on an 8-hour shift, I think people are usually given maybe 20 or so minutes smoke break if you want to go and smoke or something, if you want to go and pee or maybe have a rest. So I do have a friend who went to the car because, on a normal environment, it was a working environment, it was on freezing temperatures. So I think the guy was going to his car to pick a call. Then once he closed the doors, I think the car was warm enough, and that's how he slept. So he woke up, I think, the next morning at work with no work. Yeah, that happens. That happens all the time. Yeah, so yeah, that marks the end of my forklift job. Then I think at the time there were a lot of support worker jobs going around. So basically, support work is revolves around taking care of people with various disabilities. So with that job, it's a bit more flexible. That's why it's very popular here in Australia with students, because a lot of them do have flexibility in terms of hours. Yeah, and you can sort of plan your life around work. Yeah, because what usually happens on a on a normal student life, like you do have to, there are certain school days, then your other things are kind of planned around your uni days. Like for instance, okay, yeah, like you have maybe Mondays and Tuesdays for uni. That's where you place maybe Wednesdays, Thursdays for work, a time for your friends, a time for family. Like everything now, like has school at the yardstick, but everything comes planned along within that environment. I think there are times when you know that it's too much, and I think your body will always communicate back to you. Of course, there are stories of people passing out in class just out of exhaustion, but I'll give two instances whereby I think I knew that I was going overboard. So, because of becoming too busy with work and school, and by then I'd actually gotten another car, so I had realized that I wasn't really walking a lot. And it's very easy to forget about it's very easy for that to skip your conscious mind because everything is automated. Because if on a normal day, if you're going to work, it's very likely that you will drive. If you're going maybe for shopping, it's very likely that you'll drive. So I think I came to realize that I was spending a lot of time sitting without really knowing. Then on my first day of getting a support worker's role, which was quite physical, that's when I realized, it dawned on me that I was starting to have some back problems because I wasn't really able to walk as long as I'd ordinarily do. Because back in Kenya, I've taken very long walks. I've walked for 12, 13 kilometers walk before. But there was a time I was taking a few participants that I was supporting that just asked me to, take them around to McDonald's, which is 700 meters away, and bring them back. I was like, yeah, game. All good. But I remember like walking 200 meters in, then I just felt some tingling sensation on my lower back. And I was like, oh, I think I need to do something. Yeah, I think I need to watch out for my health. And yeah, that was just one of the alarm bells. Luckily, I noticed that early enough, so I addressed it. So for Australia generally, I came to realize that you do have to make an active intention to prioritize your physical and mental health, because that, by the virtue of the turnings of Australian life, that can easily take a backseat subconsciously. Campus life was quite tough because I had to have a lot of to wear a lot of hats at the same time, because yeah, I had to play the role of being a student. I had to play the role of being my own parent. Yeah, because you're now living at your by your own, footing your own bills. So you have to kind of also pay your own school fees, which is usually one of the hardest stuff because in Australia, education is very expensive. And also, it's important to know that international students pay a little bit more than domestic students because part of the funds usually go to the government, and also a good chunk of it also goes to school. So on a day-to-day basis, I think I'd never really realized the importance of time management until I came to Australia. Yeah, like I think I came to see how the practicality of time management being an actual game. You know, if you need to meet someone at 2, it actually means meeting at 2, not the Kenyan time at 2, so it's 2-ish. So if I get to 3, you won't be mad. Yeah, because there's a time I actually missed a job interview because I was 5 minutes late, which I thought was not a big deal. But of course, yeah, I was taken through the interview. They were all smiles and whatnot. But I was given those communications of don't call us, we'll call you. And they called me. They called me to say like, hey, we are really, really sorry. We do value our time, but because you are slightly late, we're not gonna consider your application. So they were like, yeah, we do understand that parking in our premises is a bit difficult, but that is your responsibility to allow enough time to find parking and, avail yourself for for interviewing purposes in the stipulated time as agreed. Not unless you communicated in advance. If you were to communicate in advance that you're going to be late, probably you would have made it would have made a good case for you. Mine, I mean, it was hard enough for me to start. Of course, I did have my own advantages and whatnot, but I'm imagining how hard it were if I was to come with family. Yeah, it could have been maybe even harder because other dynamics would have played along. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people who didn't really have any other options other than them coming with maybe kids or maybe other like maybe spouses. Yeah, so yeah, that was another takeaway. So me coming by then I think I was 23 years old. So 23-year-old young responsibility-less guy was worked to my advantage because, yeah, I didn't really have. And one of the challenges, I think there's high expectations from people at home with regards to, being the perception that is created about being abroad, and it's all rain. They there's that perception that back in Kenya, where people think that by the virtue of you just being in Australia, it's a must that you're making it big. So you're gonna get a lot of calls from friends, old friends, relatives, nitumie kakitu. Tuko hapa Quiver, si tukupatie till number. Unasemaje? And I don't really know why, but saa zingine like with time sometimes you can see it coming. Kuna kwanga na some haze ya Facebook yenye unajua tu like, okay, this hey, and inakuwa like, hey, how are you doing over there in Australia? Okay, that's nice. How is the weather? That's a very Kenyan question, by the way. Okay, yeah, it's cold. Is it usually as cold as it is here? Okay, no. So you organize for me to come. I'm like, okay. But some of those questions are actually genuine. Sometimes you can tell that some of the questions are very ignorant, but they come from they don't come from a bad place, but there are others which they are not so really good intentioned questions. So yeah, sometimes people can also come with very genuine needs, but sometimes there can be too much genuine needs that it becomes a problem. Like for instance, someone can come from a place of maybe, hey, my kids are sick. I just have this amount of money. I just needed this much more for me to take them to hospital. So are you in a good position? So maybe the first time you can be like, yeah, there's actually a genuine need. Okay, let me see if I can come through. But the next time it comes from a place of, hey, I am supposed to take my kids to school, but I'm just missing this much amount of money. Okay, so with time you're like, okay, these are genuine needs, but man, I'm not really a parent. I can't be. It's very unfortunate. Those are really genuine needs, but you can't really be out there solving everyone's problems, and that's just one person. So you can't be out there solving everyone's needs. So at times you're caught in a place whereby you can't help everyone. There are friends who I no longer talk to, or maybe the relationship is not really the same. Yeah, because there are some people who actually feel entitled of getting help from you by just the virtue of you being perceived of having it better than them. The first week you coming there to you being overseas for 10 plus years, you're still gonna get those messages from your old high school teacher, your estranged relatives or people that you didn't even know that you're related with, your friends from high school, your friends from primary, some even not so close, some even close. Yeah. Because don't even get me wrong, I've also lost even very close friends that I didn't really want to lose. But sometimes you do have to strike a balance of how much you need to help, how much you can help, and if you really need to help. Because there are some, for sure, genuine circumstances whereby it might be a good idea to help if you can. Because sometimes you might not be in a position to help, even if you want to. But there are some times whereby you're not obligated to help because of it just being a need for them, Sometimes you would acknowledge that, okay, you might have a close relative who doesn't, life takes people in different turns, and maybe there's a month, maybe they might not have money for their rent. So if you do it once, that you come through for them, it doesn't become an obligation that you'll need to come through any other time they have the same problem, even if it's a genuine need. I've had so many instances of maybe someone asking me to help them on Facebook, then I don't. Then later on to find that they've maybe unfriended me because I said no. I think that happens all the time. Or maybe you realize that you're not really seeing their statuses on WhatsApp anymore. Yeah. I think it happens all the time. And I think everyone who's watching, who's here in Australia, or maybe any other place in the world, can attest to to that experience. Yeah. So, and again, and sometimes there are needs whereby you can actually come through because of the relationship with the relationship you have with the person you're helping. For instance, a wedding might not really be what would fall under a genuine need for you. But for instance, if it's your friend's wedding, you might come through as a friend to the person, not because you're trying to fill in a need. Yeah, you can just come through maybe as a friend. Like, yeah, you have a wedding. A wedding is not like a basic need. You won't die without a wedding. But because you're my friend, I can actually do something about this. Like there's just that automatic expectations that you will be the one footing the bills for nearly everything. Like for instance, if when I go back to Kenya, like I usually try and go yearly. So if you have to meet your friends, I think it's a preconceived conclusion that you will be the one sorting out the bills automatically. Yeah, I think I've had maybe countable experiences of people actually offering to either split the bill or maybe pay it by themselves. But most of the time, they don't even consider that as an option. Like once the bill is brought to the table, that's when they try to pick up the phone. When you're heading to the counter, they wait for you outside. I think even someone has come on this platform and told a story of the challenges that they had once they they decided to go back and settle. Yeah. So yeah, I actually know of people who have actually cut off everyone once they came. Yeah, I know of stories of people who have actually sort of just disconnected from everyone and sort of started afresh. And by that, I'm talking about family. And I do sometimes understand, if you're coming from a not so good background, I don't know, but I do tend to think that sometimes it's good to put yourself first, for everyone. Yeah. So again, if you can help, help. If you want to help, help. If you don't want to help, don't. But it's important not to harbor the guilt of acting on your own interests. When I was in campus, I was doing mostly the support work care role, which kind of helped me sail through. Then after that, I think I just ascended through the ranks until I got the job that I'm currently in, the Disability Services Officer, which that's now my 8 to 5 kind of job. Then outside that, that's when I do other things with regards to, my hobbies and my interests. Yeah, because outside my, the bread and butter kind of problem that I have to solve, I also have my other interests, even outside what I'd consider as work. Yeah, because I've also had the privilege of traveling to all the states in Australia. I've also participated in other activities that, a lot of people wouldn't really consider participating. I've done a couple of them, which include maybe I've done skydiving before. I've also done bungee jumping. I've gone to yeah, I've even flown a small plane before, like the small Cessna. Yeah, yeah, I've done that as well. I've gone for pilot training, but just on the basic level. I'm not a trained pilot. Actually, I was thinking a few weeks back when back in Kenya, I saw the news of people wanting to occupy JKIA. So I was actually thinking, like, I think my skill would have come in handy. Yeah, if I was around, my skill, I think people are looking up to Caliph Cairo and myself. So it would have come in handy because, free flights to whatever destinations. Yeah, so I've also done that. What other things? Yeah, I've also gone to a gun safety course. So I'm a trained gun, I'm a licensed gun user, but not an owner. It's important to make that clear, and I'll have to look at the camera. I'm not a gun owner, but yeah, I'm a trained gun user. Because in Australia, like, I think it's more or less the same dynamics like in Kenya, whereby it's not really easy to acquire a gun. It's not like the US, whereby their laws are a bit relaxed on that. Yeah, so I went for a gun safety course and the training. You're being trained on how to shoot, gun maintenance, things to do with aiming, gun safety. I do have a perspective on a few things, like basic life skills, for instance, from a formal education perspective. I do tend to think that things like swimming should be a basic skill to learn, because that would come in handy in case of, even if you're not per se in danger, but you should be able to save someone in danger. Like, for instance, things like learning martial arts. Being a good martial artist will help in self-defense. Not necessarily, like, one would actually learn them for them to be good in self-defense, not because they want to use it to their advantage and to give them unfair advantage over anything. So I do tend to think that people should be should get the right skills. I think if that is trained from the grassroots level going up, people would have a lot of the basic skills well taken care of before having to think about other things. Like for instance, I'll quote this. I read a tweet. I think it was from Boniface Mwangi, who said, and I won't really say it in the exact same words, but he said something along the lines of, by the time his sons reach 10, they should be able to board a matatu by themselves, they should be able to cook, and they should be able to fight. Of course, it like he received a lot of flack in the comments coming from, kids are not supposed to hold licenses, driver's license at 8 till they're 18 years old. Fighting is bad, yada yada. Okay, he didn't really receive a lot of flack for the kids having his kids learning how to cook and whatnot. But if you think about it in retrospect, if you're able to drive at such a young age, it will save time for you to learn other more important things later on. If you're good enough to defend yourself in school, where a lot of those bullying and whatnot happens, you would become a well-rounded, confident person to believe in yourself, that no one can easily just mess up with you, because you can easily stand up with yourself on yourself, because it doesn't really come from the physical aspect. Once you are able to do that, it also comes. It also changes your mentality and approach to other things. Yeah, it's just like becoming, when you're fit, it also, it has a spillover effect on other areas of your life. I've come to learn that Australia can be forgiving in some aspects. Like, for instance, it's easier to switch careers in Australia as opposed to back in Kenya. Yeah, you can get to 40 years old and say like, yeah, I think I no longer want to do banking. I do want to study medicine. Quit, go to school, somehow find a job. Of course, and maybe, get to the target that you're aiming for. Of course, some challenges are given either way. It might be harder if other things are going on, for instance, family. But Australia does provide the platform of what was probably a long-term goal becomes a short-term goal. Yeah, it can be quite forgiving in some aspects. Even for me, if you're to tell me, maybe at the time I was learning, that I was going to be a disability services officer and at the same time being a DJ, and both of them doing sort of well, I wouldn't really imagine how that was going to be possible. But for some reason, it all worked out. So maybe even for those guys who are coming over to Australia, and generally to a lot of these other fast-paced countries, because I've had a chat with a lot of friends who are all over the place, the experience is just the same. Like, once you do have an open mind and be open to receiving experiences and learning and going with the flow and carving your own path, it's just about when things open up. It's not about if. For instance, right here in Sydney or Australia generally, of course, you face challenges for your whole Australian stay. But what people I've seen is constant with people coming through is finding a footing when they do land. Yes, so getting the first job is usually very hard. Getting maybe the first place to settle is usually very hard. Even harder when you come with family, other family members, for those maybe who are married and do have to come with their spouses and children. Yeah, I think getting the first steps right is usually the hardest, because there are some people who get luckier than others. There are some people who hit the ground running and it works out for them. There are some people who have it rough. And in unfortunate circumstances, there have been people who are actually forced to go back when things have become way too hard. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of the challenges that are usually sort of common is usually the starting ground. Everyone would end up getting their own challenges along the way. Yeah, and it's still a race whereby hakuna kufika per se. Yeah, there's usually always the next thing to work towards, always the next thing to achieve. One good thing about Australia, it's a very multicultural place. So you won't really miss your own people. Yeah, there's always enough of everyone, enough of your own people around. But now this is the caveat. You know, when you come to Australia, you've also come to explore and to, to learn from different cultures and also have different experiences. You don't really want to have an extension of Kenya over here. So you also want to find yourself other friends from other cultures, other people from out there who just learn. It's important for someone to learn new ways of doing things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, East West home is best. Finding your own friends from back home is not really a big challenge for a lot of people. Actually, for nearly everyone, there's always that balance of just being comfortable in your own space with your own people, but there's also the other side of the coin of, going out there and getting the Australian experience, mingling out with the natives and also other cultures. I'm also open to other experiences. I don't really know where life is taking me at the moment, or rather, okay, not specifically, but yeah, I'm open to more experiences and see, I'm actually just as curious as any other person. I'm just turning a new page of life every day. I wake up and go to sleep with a lot of hope and plans, and whatever works, works. Whatever doesn't work, we change plans. Whenever we seek help, we ask for it. Whenever we can offer help, yeah, it's just a normal unpredictability of life that I'm enjoying. So yeah, we'll all see where that leads to.